And then to bring it to a culmination today, because he received First Communion and Confirmation, so now is fully initiated member of the Catholic Church.
I'm sure most of you know the famous Hollywood actor SHIA LaBeouf, who starred in blockbuster movies like Transformers, Indiana Jones, and The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But what many people don't know is that recently, SHIA entered into full communion with the Catholic Church, and his conversion story is nothing short of miraculous. In the first clip, Bishop Barron shares how he personally played a role in guiding and confirming SHIA into the faith. It's a powerful reminder that God can use anyone, even a Hollywood director, even a bishop, even an actor, to bring about his purposes. So let's begin by watching the first clip.
Well, it's an interesting story. You know, he was researching his role in this movie about Padre Pio, who was a Capuchin friar. And SHIA at that point in his life was a little bit lost, I think. And the producer said, well, there's a Capuchin friary outside of LA. And it was in my pastoral region. So I was an auxiliary bishop of Los Angeles. And my region was Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. So out in Santa Barbara County is this Capuchin friary. And so I had heard that SHIA LaBeouf had gone out there and was talking to the friars. Well, then maybe a week or so later, I was at another friary out that way to give a talk to the deacons of my region. And I show up, and here I see this guy. It was during COVID. He had the big black beard and the COVID mask. So at first I didn't know who it was. And then I realized, oh, that's SHIA LaBeouf. And he said, do you mind if I listen to your talk? It was a talk on prayer. I said, no, sure, come on in. So he listened to my talk. And then I went to the chapel, I remember, to pray before the Blessed Sacrament. And he came in and sat right next to me and was, I think, trying to figure out, okay, what are these people doing as they pray? Well, then a little bit later, the movie itself was made, and he showed us a early version of it, a group of us. But afterwards, he was asked, hey, tell me about the impact it had on you personally. And he told this beautiful story in a very compelling way about how researching Padre Pio and playing him brought him to a deep spiritual place. So I went up afterward and said, look, would you be willing to get this sort of on tape if you and I sit down and just talk it through? And he said, yeah, I'd love that. So it was the very last thing I did before I left California to come to Minnesota. I sat down with him, and for an hour and a half, I guess, we just talked about his spiritual life and his journey. And that little video was watched by, I don't know, like 3 million people or something. So, and then I give him a lot of credit. He started the process. He was articulate about it, but he hung in there as well. And he had been baptized as a young kid, but now he wanted to be confirmed in the Catholic Church. And so he kept working with these Capuchin friars whom he knew. And then I agreed to come out and do the confirmation service, which I did at the very end of December 2023. Wow. So it's been a privilege to walk with him.
It's truly moving to see how Bishop Barron played such an important role in bringing SHIA's journey of conversion to its culmination. Moments like these remind us how God orchestrates our lives, placing the right people in the right place at just the right time to give us the courage, motivation, and inspiration to make life-changing decisions. And when you really think about it, it's no exaggeration to say that Bishop Barron had a profound hand in shaping SHIA's spiritual journey. Now, in the next clip, SHIA shares how a simple Zoom call with the film's director, Abel Ferreira, something that seemed completely ordinary, became the spark that set everything in motion. Let's take a look.
But my life was completely, like I told you, on fire. And I'm in a spiritual program where I go on Zoom, and we have meetings, and another person that was in this meeting, who's also part of this same fellowship of like the down and outs, was a man named Abel Ferreira. And he wound up seeing me in the meeting. We shared sensibilities. We had heard each other share a few times. And then he wrote me in the chat box, do you know about Padre Pio? And of course, I didn't know anything about Padre Pio.
This is before the offer of the film. It's
yeah.
Just, okay.
This had been gestating on his side for years, because his grandfather comes from the same region in Pietrelcina, and he has a connection to Pio in many different ways. He's not a Catholic, he's a Buddhist. And I thought, okay, well, what is this Padre Pio thing? And this is early days in my what now looks like a salvific journey from my side,
Yeah.
I was still egotistical on max. I was still grasping at straws. How do I hold on to what I've lost? How do I build a career again? How do I, and so when this director who I respected, I had known he made movies that I really loved. You know, Bad Lieutenant for me is one of the greatest performances ever made, and I know he's an actor's director, and the fact that there was this director reaching out to me, because at this point I'm nuclear. Nobody wants to talk to me, including my mother. The manager's not calling, the agent's not calling. I'm not connected to the business anymore. And so the fact that this man reached out to me felt like something like in my egoic mind, wow, this is a miracle.
This is my chance to
This is
get
my
back to
chance.
it.
This is my chance.
Yeah.
And so my ego shows up. And now I'm like, yeah, well, Padre Pio. And my ego is what makes me research Pio. It's not my Catholicism or my yearnings
So you thought
towards
this would be a cool
God.
role for me to play.
Great, now I can get back on the horse. You know?
Yeah, okay.
And so I start researching Pio. And as I'm researching Pio, he tells me about his plans to make a movie, and he tells me that Willem Dafoe is going to be in the movie. And now I'm really in ego. Wait, so I can go from bottom barrel to working with Willem Dafoe? This is my chance, you know, back on the hustle, back on the ego.
Yeah.
And I start leaning into this thing, and he says, well, if you want to do this role, I need you to start researching. Go up and find I need you to go find a seminary, a
Well,
Catholic
that's when
seminary.
you made your way up to San Lorenzo.
So the closest seminary to me,
Yeah.
living in Pasadena, was San Lorenzo. So I
Yeah.
drive up there and I park my truck and I start living in the parking lot. And I'm immersing myself in this world, and I'm sending videos back to Willem and Abel, who at the time were, you know, working on the script. And I'm falling into a group of men that met me in San Lorenzo, namely a guy named Brother Jude, who starts talking to me about the gospel. And he says, well, if you're going to play Pio, you need to read the gospel. And so I'd never read the gospel, and he's reading Matthew to me.
So you'd never read like the
Nothing.
Gospel of Matthew straight
Nothing.
through? Yeah, okay.
I've read all Sam Harris. I've watched all the TED Talks.
Yeah, right.
And was really good at attacking Catholicism because it made me feel superior.
It's fascinating how God can even use our ego to get our attention, isn't it? Sometimes the very thing that seems to pull us away from Him, our pride, our ambition, our hunger for success, becomes the instrument He uses to lead us back. As Shia LaBeouf shared, it was his ego-driven desire to revive his acting career and work alongside prominent names that made him say yes to the role of San Padre Pio. On the surface, it looked just another career move, a chance to rebuild his image and regain Hollywood's favor. But beneath all of that, God was at work, quietly transforming his motives into something much deeper. That one professional decision became the doorway to a spiritual encounter that slowly drew him closer and closer to the heart of the Catholic Church. And really, this is the pattern we see all throughout sacred scripture. Take St. Paul, for example. Once Saul, whose pride and zeal to defend the law drew him to persecute Christians, yet God took that same fire and redirected it, turning him to one of the greatest apostles of all time. Or think about Joseph's brothers in Genesis. Their jealousy and cruelty led them to sell him into slavery, but God turned that betrayal into the very act that would save countless lives during famine. It is as if God is a master artist painting even with our mistakes. Every brush stroke, even the messy ones, become part of His beautiful design. He transforms our ego, wounds, and misplaced desires into humility and purpose. That's the power of grace. It doesn't always start with holiness. Sometimes it starts with ambition. Now, in the next clip, Bishop Barron explains why we are called to let go of the ego drama, where we are the main character, and enter into the THEO drama, God's story, where He's the author and director. And that's exactly what happened with Shia LaBeouf. Let's listen.
Friends, we come to the fourth Sunday of Advent, and the church gives us this marvelous story of the visitation, Mary's visit to her cousin Elizabeth. And I'll tell you the word I've always loved in this story. It's the word haste. Let me just read to you the beginning of this famous account. In those days, Mary set out with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. So we're right after the Annunciation. Mary has discovered her mission, and she goes quickly. She goes in haste. The reason she moves fast is she knows who she is and she knows what she's about because she's found her role in the theodrama. I know I've used that word with you many times before. See, most of us are stuck in the boring and narrow confines of the ego drama. That's our little drama. I'm producing it, I'm directing it, I'm above all starring in it. It's this story that I'm making up on my own terms for my own purposes. Bore me to death with the ego drama. when you're caught in the ego drama, you don't really know who you are. You don't know where you're going because you've not been galvanized by some value, some good outside yourself that's calling you beyond the narrow confines of your little ego. Nothing's drawing you. Nothing's exciting you. The result of that is what I've called before the culture. It's a lot of our culture. I'm doing what I want to do, and you're doing what you want to do. And, above all, we better tolerate each other because I can't be imposing my view on you. There's nothing objectively true and good. That's just a power play. All we've got are these little egos generating their own little dramas and kind of tolerating everybody else. Nobody moves in haste in that environment. That's the, who cares, bored culture. The classical spiritual writers, by the way, refer to that as sloth. It's one of the deadly sins. That means it's a lack of energy and purpose in regard to spiritual things. Mary is not playing an ego-dramatic game. She's playing a theodramatic game. God has revealed to her her mission, her purpose. And so she moves. That's the sign of the saints. Even the contemplative saints, there's always something that's energetic about them. They know where they are and what they're going, where they're going.
This message from Bishop Barron about the ego drama and the theodrama wasn't just central to SHIA LABEOUF's story. It's something that has personally shaped my own life as well. When Shyla described how he had been living for fame, validation, and self-image, and how God slowly drew him out of that mindset, I couldn't help but see myself in that same struggle. For years, I too was caught up in what Bishop Barron calls the ego drama, a life centered around my own success, reputation, and control. Everything revolved around me. What people thought of me, how I appeared, how I performed. It all looked good from the outside, but inside it was spiritually hollow. Then I heard Bishop Barron's preaching on the theodrama, the call to step out of our story and into God's story, where He's the author and director. The truth hit me like a wave. It was as though God reached in and flipped a switch. I realized that true joy doesn't come from asserting yourself, but from offering yourself, from becoming a gift for others. That simple shift in mindset changed everything. I began letting go of my need for control and approval and started asking, Lord, what part do you want me to play in your story? Like Shyla, I learned that when you surrender your ego, God gives you purpose. It's not an instant transformation, it's a lifelong conversion. But I can say with conviction that Bishop Barron's preaching pulled me out of that pit. It helped me see that the goal of life isn't to make your name great, but to make God's name known. And for that, I will be always grateful. I hope this video is helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.